So in my apartment, I have a bunch of plants, and um, I just like I just like plants, so I have a bunch, and pretty much everyone that's walked into my apartment and seen how many plants I have in my apartment has basically said something along the lines of, "You think you got enough plants there, Sam?" And the answer is no, no, I don't. The problem is that I live in an apartment, and I don't have enough room for more plants. Um, that's my biggest issue with apartments is there's no room for plants, right? But anyway, having plants inside your house for improved air quality, it just seemed to make sense to me. So I looked it up, and apparently there was a study done that found that, by NASA, by the way, that found that it works to some degree. So what they did was, from my understanding on this, looking into it, is that NASA did some experiments where they brought plants up to, they might have brought them out to space, right? They were up in space at the space, what's that called? International Space Station. I think that's the term. Yeah. So they were up there, and they put the plants in like a little pod with contaminated air and with like some contaminants in the air, and then they left it in like a sealed thing, right? So they know how much contaminants was in it, and then afterwards they measured the level of contaminants over time, right? And they found that it decreased. And so basically that was proof, yes, plants can take contaminants out of the air. But there is also a bunch of stuff that basically said it doesn't work and is useless outside of lab conditions. So basically there was research done that found, yes, plants can improve air quality, but then there was a bunch of papers and articles saying that, practically speaking though, really you can't use plants for increasing air or improving air quality, and it doesn't really work outside of perfect lab conditions. And the reason why they say this is because you're putting the contaminants in the air, then you're putting it in a sealed chamber, right? And then you're letting the plants slowly over time pick the contaminants out. But when in a natural thing you've got air flowing and it's not all just perfectly sealed in a thing, so it's not all getting exposed to the plant, so it doesn't really work, and it's not worth doing. And so there was I looked at like 2 or 3 articles that basically said this, that said it's actually not, it doesn't work and it's not good and don't do it, right? And I just found this absolutely bizarre. Because so there is a bunch of stuff that basically said it doesn't work or is useless outside of lab conditions. Now, can you make an air filtration system purely with plants? Maybe not. But I don't think anyone was trying to, right? And I'm not saying, okay, who cares about air filters and things like that? Just use plants and that'll purify your air and you'll be good. That's not why you put plants in your house, right? Anyone that obviously an air filter is going to be more effective than a plant is going to be, because all of the air flows through the filter, whereas not all the air is going around the plant. Obviously, it's not as effective in the general conditions, but that doesn't mean it doesn't do anything, right? We have evidence to prove that they do pull contaminants out of the air. So to say don't do it, it's not worth it, just seems kind of ridiculous, right? If you're buying plants purely to purify your air, maybe that's not your best course of action, right? But I don't think it would hurt, right? Because they do pull some contaminants out. So if some contaminants come by, they might take those in. Anyway, I don't think anyone was trying to make an air filtration system purely with plants, but that's how the papers seem to word it. Though saying that in real life conditions, the plants would have minimal impact, right? They're saying, don't even bother with the plants, right? Because the plants don't really do much. So don't even bother getting plants in your house, right? And then they also said, and so here's the thing, isn't something better than nothing? Why wouldn't you want some plants in your house if beyond their other benefits, beyond the fact that plants purify air to some level, which is proven, then they also just look nice, right? There are proven health benefits to having plants, and people being out in nature has proven benefits. Having plants around in an office has also been, I'm pretty sure, proven to have benefits. And so, even if the plants themselves aren't really doing a ton of air purification, they're still gonna do a little, right? And so that seems like a good benefit at the very least, and then so I found this paper interesting because, it also seemed to state that the dirt for the plant may be doing more to clean the air than the plant. I found this paper that made like an argument in it, which is this is why it was just so bizarre to me. Like, why are they even making this point? That there was some evidence that pointed towards the dirt actually being more effective at purifying the air than the plant. And to me, I'm like, how is that a downside? How is it a downside that the dirt also purifies the air? So I found that really interesting too. In this thing, I'm like, why is that why is that a bad thing? What? I was just confused by that. The dirt may be doing more to clean the air than the plant. And that's, just a funny point to make because I don't see how that's an issue. Keep the dirt for the benefit and then grow a plant for the fun, right? Like these were they're weird arguments to be making for reasons why not to get plants in your house to purify your air, right? This paper was making the argument against having houseplants to purify your air. And it just seemed very bizarre to me to even do that, to even make that point, right? And so here's one point that I can say, or I can see as valid is, they put mold concerns and with overwatering and such, but this is a preventable issue. It's not a big downside. With all the upsides that plants provide. You don't get mold if you don't overwater your plants. Like if you properly water them, then they won't get moldy and it'll be okay. And if it does get moldy, okay, then you throw that one out and you get another one that isn't moldy, and the problem is solved. And you just learn from your mistake and, don't do that again, right? And then the other one that may have some merit is, they say plants release pollen and people are allergic to pollen. So this could be a health issue, this is not health advice here, but I may actually disagree with this statement about the pollen though, because I've never been allergic to pollen, really bad, breaking out or anything like that. But for the past couple years, at least, I would get at least a runny nose and a cough around, the time where peak pollen. And this past year, after living in my apartment for a full year, right, with all my plants, I didn't get that. It didn't happen. I was expecting it, and it never happened. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, I wonder why. Maybe it wasn't as extreme this year. I don't know. I only have 1 year of data to base this off of. So again, this is not health advice, but I did watch a video talking about how they were able to build up the ability to consume lactose again by basically just consuming a ton of lactose. And I kind of feel like, this is how you build up immunity to flus, like the flu shot. It gives you a little bit of the flu basically so that your body can adapt to it and find a way to counteract the, in the sickness or the virus or whatever you get a vaccine for, right? It exposes you to a little bit of that, right? And your body finds a way to combat it and acclimate with it, right? So by having this small, it's really not a crazy amount of plants, but it's a good amount of plants. By having these house plants in my apartment with me, for a year, I was exposed to probably small doses of pollen, over an extended period of time. And I think it helped my body build up an immunity to pollen. And so after a year of living in a 1-bedroom apartment with my plants, I was not allergic to the pollen. And I think the reason why people are so allergic to pollen now is because we're outside so little. We get such little exposure to pollen that when we do experience it, it's this foreign object in our lungs, right? And that we're breathing in. Our body's like, what the heck is this? What is this? Right? Whereas if you're constantly exposed to it, your body goes, oh, that's pollen. Okay, that's pollen. Right? And so, not health advice, but some food for thought. And so, anyway, I think plants in homes is generally a good idea, and I found papers and their reasoning against it quite fishy, to be honest. I don't really see why it would be a big point to say that they don't clean the air when they have been technically proven to do exactly that by NASA, right? Lab conditions or not, this would be the case. The effectiveness and quantity of purification is not very relevant, right? So if you're trying to purify your air purely through plants, probably not going to be very efficient or effective. Not saying it's impossible. There's not a lot of research into doing that. I think it would be interesting if we could do that. That would be kind of cool. I don't imagine it to be impossible, but as of right now, not the recommended strategy. But again, I don't think anyone was trying to do that, right? So if you have a couple houseplants in your house, are they going to make your air the cleanest it's ever been? No, probably not. But on average, the air that is inside your house or your apartment is probably dirtier and worse for you than the air outside. Because there's less airflow, there's less circulation, and there's more contaminants that just float in the air. Just think about if you've ever seen the amount of dust that is floating in the air in a sunbeam, right, coming through a window. If you've ever seen that dust, you're breathing that in all the time, right? So if you could put a few houseplants in your in your apartment or in your house, I would. Personally, I would. I love plants. I would. I don't think it would hurt. They're cool to look at. Get a succulent. It's not hard to take care of. Water it once every 2 weeks, and it'll be plenty. Just make sure it gets a little bit of sun. And some plants maybe don't even really need sun. Don't need a ton of sun, right? But you just get succulents or something like that, right? That they don't need a lot of water. They don't need a lot of attention. They just kind of do their thing, and they look cool and potentially purify your air a little bit. So it's great. Another thing that was an interesting point that was made in there, but I didn't bring it up, is that dust can build up on the leaves. So that was an argument against why you should have houseplants, because dust can kind of collect on the leaves, and then that could be a problem. And I just thought that was such a stupid point to make as well, because dust collects on everything. Just dust your plants. Problem solved, right? You dust everything else, dust your plants. So I just thought that was another really weird argument to make against having a houseplant. But that's all I wanted to say with that one. I just thought it was really weird. The main thing I wanted to talk about is how weird it was that they were arguing against getting the houseplants. But yeah, also recommend you just get some plants. So yeah, peace out.